So, my name is Chris Morris. I am an archivist at the Computer History Museum. Today I'm interviewing Chris Wolf. It's October 18th, 2023, and we are doing an interview which will be part of the VMware Founders Collection at the Computer History Museum. Thanks, Chris, for taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Appreciate the opportunity.
Just for the record, if you could say for me your current title and location, home base right now.
Yeah, I'm a VP of AI Labs at VMware. My office is in Palo Alto at the VMware headquarters. I currently reside just outside of Salt Lake City.
Okay. So you're commuting or hybriding.
I am. It's really not bad. I think still my commute is better than some people in the Bay Area. It's like a 90-minute flight, so not really bad, all things considered.
True, true. So tell us a little bit about your education and work background leading up to VMware.
Yeah, I'd say probably not the traditional path that some folks have taken in high school or coming out of high school. I enlisted in the U.S. Marines. I was a avionics technician in the Marine Corps, and I didn't think it was a big deal at the time. I think as I've gotten older, I've appreciated it a little bit more. During my time in, I had reverse engineered seven different pieces of avionics equipment that we would test and built test equipment for them. And it was saving the Marine Corps at the time a few $1 million a year just in repair costs, where they would have to send these types of like parts for F-18s and other aircraft um, outside to third-party facilities. So that really, I think, is what started getting me aligned with the innovation bug and really wanting to do and drive more. And while I was in the Marines, I had finished my associate's degree, finished my bachelor's degree a little bit after I had left the Marine Corps in 1996, and then went on to secure my master's degree at Rochester Institute of Technology following that. So that took me out to, I want to say 2002 or somewhere around there. And at that time, I was already working with VMware Technologies. I was working for Commvault Systems at the time.
Mm. So tell me a bit about your experience as a user of VMware in those with those early products coming out of the company.
Yeah, it was quite interesting because at the time it became very obvious to me that VMware had this huge role in enterprise IT because at Commvault I was doing things like helping customers rebuild their Exchange 5.5 clusters on Windows NT servers with sometimes first generation fiber channel adapters, and just recovering and rebuilding systems was extremely complex. And when I had seen the value that VMware can provide, it wasn't about running a system on a laptop. It was saying, hey, this fundamentally changes how we look at disaster recovery in the way that we manage systems. So at Commvault, I was an advocate and really the first person in the company to start to drive some of the decisions the company was making relative to VMware. I was helping some of the engineers in the field with the very first adopters of GSX and ESX with their backup solutions, and really saw this huge future uh, for the company in general, and really the industry because it was new, and it was solving an age old problem that we had forever in IT. And to me, the future of VMware was fairly inevitable. I thought it was just a matter of when, not if, at that time.
Was it a hard sell to make this trend to say this is the way we should be going in IT?
Oh yes, yeah. So my peers at Commvault thought I was like really losing it when I told them I was going to leave the company. I want to say in 2003 and really focus on virtualization full time. At that time, I'd already published a few books, and I was pitching the idea of a book on virtualization to some different publishers. And my publisher at the time, Addison Wesley, told me that there was no market for a book on virtualization. It was just too niche, which is funny now looking back. I did, I guess the silver lining was a smaller publisher at the time called A Press believed in taking the chance and got it published. But there was a lot of convincing to do back then. And I think if I look back, I want to say the first public talk I had ever given on virtualization was in 2002, and It was at a tech mentor conference, so that definitely dates me a little bit. Some people I think know what that is, and the virtualization session I gave, I think there was 9 people in the room,
Hmm.
and I'm like, you are the 9 smartest people in the conference, So
Sure.
it was really interesting to see that it was really something that people were tinkering with back then to where it is, shortly thereafter, right? I mean, once you started getting into like 2006, everybody was doing work in virtualization, and it was top of mind for most CIOs in the industry, and it kind of went on from there.
So, how did you learn the technical skills? How did you gain the expertise in those early years?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was really being self-taught, bouncing ideas off of peers. There was a pretty small community, I think, of folks that we all would connect and talk together, whether it was people like Alessandro Perilli, who ran a technical blog, Duncan Epping, Ron Hoglesby. There's been, uh, a few people that have been really, I think, around for quite some time. So I think the early days of the virtualization community were emerging. There were some things that were trial and error. Like I would spend late nights trying to figure out how to get a virtual cluster to run with shared virtual SCSI adapters. And it was one of the early articles I had published on VMware technologies that kind of put me on the map was some of those how-to things. But that's what it was. There just wasn't a lot of information out there. So it was reading documentation, it was trial and error, it was really being thorough about testing and seeing what worked and what didn't work, and then just a willingness to share and learn.
And did you have a home lab?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I did. At one point, my home lab even included a fiber channel SAN that I was using, which was to me was just really important for learning the technologies and what the different organizations might expect. But I don't think most home labs back in 2005 were running fiber channel at the same time. But to me, it was important.
Hmm. So, how did you go about building this into a career that landed you at VMware?
Yeah, it's I think for me it was a combination of things. It was following my instincts and really immersing myself in a technology that I believed in. That helped. But in full transparency, when I was hired at Commvault, my expertise was far more in Novell networking than any other operating system. And at the time, they had asked me in the interview process, have you ever worked with the Windows 2000 beta? And I said, yes. And they said, okay, well, you're going to be our Windows expert now. And I'm like, oh, what have I done? Like I'm thinking, here goes all of my body of knowledge around Novell technologies. How is this going to pan out? But it was seeing some of the challenges with just keeping Windows clusters running that got me really excited about VMware. And then I want to say it was in 2003 is when I decided to leave Commvault, and I was took a teaching position and as well as running a consulting business. And that's where I started really seeing a lot of traction in the industry picking up, and I started getting busier and busier through my consulting work. Uh, Following that, in 2006, a company called the Burton Group had reached out to me saying that they were trying to start this new data center and virtualization practice, wanted to see if I wanted to come and help build it. And at the time, I said no. I said I'm not analyst material. I do like a technical architecture practice, and they said, well, that's what we do. They're like we complement like Gartners of the world, and this is the kind of work that really helps takes a Gartner recommendation the last mile to how to actually implement it. And so after a few conversations, I decided to go for it, join the firm, and very quickly built a virtualization practice there to the point that in those days I was already advising Raghu and the vSphere product team. And in addition to that, when Paul Moritz became the CEO of VMware, he wanted to meet with 2 analyst firms, and one was Gartner and one was Burton Group. And for me, it was pretty exciting. We went first, and we wound up going along with Paul. the Gartner team was out in the hall waiting for us to finish. And, you know, using some gamesmanship, I left the meeting, said, "Hey, what's up, fellas? How's it going?" And long story short, it was probably 2 months after that that Gartner had acquired Burton Group. So that was, yeah, I got pulled into Gartner, but it was exciting. I think I spent about 4.5 years there. I continued to do a lot of advisory work for VMware. I served as Gartner's lead analyst for VMware, and uh, again got a lot closer to the teams. And I want to say, I'm trying to think, it had to be back in 2014. Yeah, I guess it would have been in 2014 that Raghu approached me and said, you know, we've been trying to hire for months for this America's CTO job. We just haven't been able to find the right person. What do you think about just interviewing for it? So the interview process went really quick. I already had spent a lot of time with both Pat Gelsinger and Carl Eschenbach. And a lot of the VMware product leaders knew me quite well for working with them over many years. So in a matter of a couple of weeks, I had accepted the job to start working at VMware, and wound up given, I want to say, oh sheesh, like 4 or 5 months notice to Gartner to unwind the work I was doing there. And then I started in VMware. I want to say it was January of 2014 is when I started. So Raghu would have talked to me in 2013. Now that I'm thinking about it.
So you had been working and interfacing with VMware, working with their products for such a long time. What was it like then to be on the inside, so to speak?
It was great because, you know, while I appreciated the time at Gartner, it's a very prestigious company. I was reaching a point in my career where it wasn't satisfying enough for me to advise people what to do. I wanted to have an active role in actually shaping the industry and shaping the future. And that's what VMware afforded me. But at the same time, just to be clear about it, it's in some ways it's intellectually terrifying going to work for a company like VMware because the intellectual capacity of the entire engineering organization is the best I had ever seen. And I was just hoping I'd be able to even last at the company. Like, you know, I think everybody has imposter syndrome coming to a company like this. And I certainly did. But I also appreciated the opportunity that you get to earn it. It didn't matter what my background was, nobody cared. Like, how are you contributing to the conversation? How are you shaping what we do? And that was really exciting to me. I never could have imagined when I came to VMware that almost 10 years later, I'm still working at the company and I have no intentions to go anywhere else. I really enjoy it every day. The team, the people we work with, the technologies that we build. You know, VMware has always been a company that likes to work on things because they're hard and because they can really add value to customers and to the industry. And that's still, I think, an exciting place to work if you're in the tech industry.
Mm-hmm. How would you describe the corporate culture at VMware when you started?
Yeah, so when I started through now, there's a lot of similarities, and what you really start to, I think, cherish at a company like VMware is when I joined, there was a lot of talk around the company's core values and integrity being really important, community being really important, you know, focus on customers. You know, I can list them all, but I think you get the idea. But to me, when you have there's lots of companies that talk the talk, but VMware walk the walk on integrity. And it's really empowering that I could be sitting across the table from any customer and just be myself and be completely honest with them and give them good advice in terms of what I think is best for them and their interests, not being self-serving in any way. And that's a great place to be. The company's focus on charity and on community service has been just, I think, just tremendous. And what I've always told my employees that have worked with me at the company over the years is there's other places that might be able to beat us on comp, but they're not going to beat us on culture. And I hear that all the time. People stay at VMware because the culture is just fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Um, it seems to me that at the time that you started at VMware, the company is really maturing, right? you've watched it go from the outside, so to speak, go through a progression of widening its scope, broadening its product lines. So, can you talk a little bit about what were the innovative and sort of next horizons discussions that you were having at VMware when you started?
Yeah, yeah. So it was interesting. So really, VMware was just going just full speed. You think about the time period from like 2006 to 2014, right? Everybody was virtualizing workloads, consolidating their data centers. And then what happened, right, in between all of that was really the rise of public cloud.
Mm.
And when I had joined the company, people were coming to me and saying, why would you work at VMware? Like their cloud computing is just going to take away their entire business. That's just
Uh,
they're just there's no really good future prospects. And I disagreed. I mean, I'm a Jersey boy, so when there's a fight, I like to run towards the fight. It's kind of how we're wired, and maybe we're taught that in school. I'm not sure, but I saw a lot of opportunity for VMware, and I think the company's embrace of multi-cloud and VMware's always been a company around interop and being able to take disparate technologies or disparate platforms and allow customers to be able to manage applications seamlessly across them. So that certainly existed in and even in the cloud era as we've seen it. There's also been a lot of work around modernization of edge computing. That's something I've spent a lot of time on in my years at the company has been focused there. And even with the different roles I've had at the company leading different innovation teams, we've always looked to innovate in areas that apply to VMware strengths, which
mm,
is VMware is highly distributed, has software in lots of different places of the world. Most places where organizations are doing business, there is a VMware stack physically there. So it's always thinking through, where do we invest to grow where we're at our strongest, and that customers expect us to solve some of these problems. So maybe that's a bit too high level, but I'm happy to go into more details too if that's
hmm
helpful.
I'm wondering what kinds of messages you were getting from customers in those days, 8 years ago. What were customers asking for from VMware?
Yeah, they were in many cases navigating decisions around public cloud, trying to understand um, what VMware's role is. And then at the same time, they were looking for an on premises experience that was comparable to what they were seeing in the public cloud. They wanted quick time to value. If I go back, almost 10 years ago, people were really struggling with. I think one of the best quotes I had heard was, like the lines of business, they wanted infrastructure as a service, but what the IT team was giving them was not IaaS but IAT, infrastructure as a ticket.
Mm,
And there was all these support tickets that would be generated, and sometimes just to get a VM could take days to weeks, and that was just unacceptable because companies like Amazon Web Services had raised the bar. And
right.
so the challenge to VMware at the time was, well, how do you provide that same level of automation and make that on-premises experience just as strong as what people can see in the public cloud?
Mhm. Um, I'd like to ask you about the research, incubation, and advanced development, X Labs. Tell me about that project, that program.
Yeah, so the team I had led around research and innovation really had three different innovation work streams. So we had a research team that was focused on really a 4+ year time to market horizon. And we had them looking at areas that we anticipated would be a critical part of VMware's future and really focus in those spaces. And that team has invented new database technology that's changed the performance of our storage system, vSAN. They've built some of the fundamental technology that underpins virtual networking. They've done a lot of the early work in machine learning and artificial intelligence that's really led the company to where it is today and the path that we're currently on. We have so research was one. We had another bucket called incubation, and they were focused on a 2 to 4 year time to market outlook. And in their case, it's some of the modern things they're working on are things like confidential computing. And we wanted to focus them in areas where we thought that were areas where we thought technology was important, but the actual market readiness was uncertain. I think the mistake that a lot of tech vendors make is that they will just overinvest or go big in something and improperly time the market. So we wanted to be really deliberate about that and say, we're gonna make the investment. We're gonna start to build the technology. We're gonna file the patents, and we're gonna give ourselves permission to enter a space once the market appears that it's like ready to go, and then we can flip the switch and have a product ready in most cases within 6 to 12 months because we've already done all of the foundation work. But we're really de-risking it by having a smaller investment. And then the third area is our X Labs team, our advanced development, and this is areas where we can point to market opportunities. We can very quickly churn out products or product capabilities and move forward at a very rapid pace. In our case, over the last couple of years, we've moved 30 of our projects into product, which is a fairly remarkable number for an organization of about 200 people. We like to benchmark ourselves against, like Microsoft Research is probably 10x our size. So it just means that we have to be highly efficient in deciding what we do, what we don't do, our approach to it. It's worked really well. And I'd be remiss if I didn't also say I think the other part of our success is our demographic. I think we're one of the most diverse innovation teams in the industry. Of the three innovation work streams I mentioned, our X Labs team and our research team are both led by women. Between women and how VMware would count underrepresented minorities, that makes up almost 50% of our workforce. And so we have diverse perspectives, we have diverse talent, we have a culture that encourages debate and a willingness or a desire by, I'd say, all of our team members to just get it right and to get to something, to take the big idea and scope it down to something that we feel customers will buy. And now let's work on that and let's just continue to iterate from there. And those are some of the things that's allowed us to be really successful.
So was this kind of approach new for VMware in terms of how these different streams of innovation were organized and conceptualized?
Yeah, I would say there's the research function in its whole had been around for several years before I had taken over ownership of that team and charter as part of a larger organization. There had been other attempts at incubation and things like that. I'd say uh, what had changed in terms of like my tenure would be to really put specific areas of focus in terms of what are the areas that we should be researching, taking a far more deliberate approach to incubation and having accountability and measurements. And it's the same thing for advanced development. A lot of times in tech, people are claiming advanced development, but what they're actually doing is building a demo. And there's a huge difference between what's a demo, right, and what can actually be a shipping product. And I think that's a big area of where we've added a lot of maturity to it. Prior to us really reshaping the organization, the CTO office was a mix of a lot of program managers and some technologists, and we really shifted the makeup of the skill sets into far more into really hardcore engineering and some product management, and taking that product discipline to like a CTO type of organization, I think is also part of what's really helped us. But at the end of the day, anybody who's a technologist and building technology, you want your work to see the light of day, right? You want people to be using it, right? You want it to grow, and we provided a platform and structure to allow that to happen. And I think that's part of it. And I can go on and on. I think the other one last thing I'll mention is you have to in innovation you have to kind of like put your ego aside as well. Like the temptation that I think a lot of folks would have in advanced development is like at the end of the day, we were building technology to serve a business unit that would ship and support the product. And if the business unit told us, you know what, we don't think you're right here, we don't want this, then I've seen it too many times where the tendency of some folks would be to say, well, I'm going to double down and I'm going to prove you wrong. And we've taken the approach that, you know what, life is short and there's plenty of problems to solve. So if the business unit who is our customer, right, they don't want this, fine. We can go and work on something else instead, and then move forward from there, right? And then if the interest resumes, then we can always pick the work back up. But there's no reason to have to try to prove somebody wrong when there's all of these other problems that exist out there that you can be working on.
Mm-hmm. This is this to me. This is key. I don't want you to short circuit the story, because to me this is key. Other people that I've talked to who have said how good VMware is and has been over the years at fostering innovation, at rewarding, not just rewarding, but really supporting and keeping an eye on innovation, valuing that innovative spark and fostering it, even when, like you said, the thing you've been working on for so many months doesn't end up being the thing that goes in the product, or it's not, the market's not ready for it, whatever the reasoning is. That I'm sure that folks are disappointed when their babies don't get to graduate, right?
Right.
But there's still, at the end of the day, people still feel really valued and really ready to go tackle that next problem, right? Rather than saying, oh, they nixed my project again, what's the point? um, I guess I'd also like to kind of know how, um, understand a little bit about how you balance that sense of what we what we call the need that the customer doesn't know they have. How do you work towards an innovation strategy that can anticipate some of the things that are coming that maybe isn't an obvious need at this time?
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you asked that because I think, especially in the innovation space, oftentimes I would say that Henry Ford gets misinterpreted because, I work with so many product managers that would always go back to, well, if Henry Ford asked his customers what they wanted, they would say they wanted a faster horse. But that's not the point. What they were saying, they weren't saying they didn't want a car. What they were saying is they wanted to get from A to B faster.
Right.
That's the problem statement. So I'm asking you as the inventor to work backwards from the problem statement. And that's, to me, that's how you have to ground innovation is you, you have to, um, you have to have bright people that have ideas, of course, but you have to be continually calibrating that with the customers that you might serve in the industry. And that requires you to get out there and talk to people and ask them questions in a way that doesn't lead them to your own conclusion, which I think is another human bias that happens, all too often. It's like, I know my idea is right, so I'm going to cherry pick like four people that I found that agree with me. I'm going to put that in a PowerPoint and try to sell it, right? As opposed to being open-minded because you ultimately want to get to the outcome, and that's really where we've tried to focus. Is we have a VMware, we have a team of about 200 CTO ambassadors globally, and they're the top technologists that we have in the field. We connect them directly into the office of the CTO. We give them a lot of access to products and roadmap. And then when we have ideas that we're looking to test, it's one thing for somebody like myself to get out there and talk to customers, but then to have a group of 200 like
Mm-hmm.
great technologists that can really get out there and ask these questions for you and then objectively bring more data back, that helps a lot and along the process of getting it right. So we don't need the customer to tell us to build X, Y, or Z. We just need to tell us what are the problems they have,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can engineer solutions that can solve those problems for them. And that's how I like to look at it. We don't have to take random guesses. We just need to ask questions in the right way.
Mm-hmm. It seems to me also that there is, in the tech world, a bit of a habit, if you will, of identifying that problem that a customer has brought, that I need this solved. I need to be able to move X from A to B, and to create a tool that just does that, right? it only moves X from A to B. And then the customer has to go and plonk that tool on top of all the other tools that they already have to move their thing, right? So, how do you look at these things holistically, the problems, the things that you're wanting to solve for, to make your solutions maybe more holistic or more
Yeah, I think
less
like if
siloed,
you
I guess?
yeah, it's a great question. And like if I take a recent example, like how VMware is thinking about artificial intelligence, a lot of what we've done is grounded in like our own desire to run our own services internally
Mm,
and thinking through what's working for us, what's not working for us. And it came down to just some things that I think right now folks might see as relatively common sense, but they weren't entirely, even if you go back a year. Um, for example, if you look at the AI space and especially the open source space, there's new innovations coming out daily, right? There's new AI models being released to Hugging Face just constantly, and uh, because of that, you have to step back and ask yourself, well, do I want to place a bet on AI, or how do I place a bet on choice
mm,
instead? And that's really what started to ground VMware's AI strategy, which was we don't have to bet on a single AI model or a single AI service. We want to place a bet on a single AI platform that gives us choice and can future proof our investment in the platform. And that's how we've really thought about this ourselves. And it's definitely resonating with all of the customers and partners we talk to, which is let me invest in a common platform that can give me exposure to AI models and give me some common data services, common security capabilities, the ability to very intelligently share the pool of infrastructure you have in terms of CPUs and GPUs, and then give me choice in terms of both commercial cloud or open source solutions to layer on top of that.
mm,
Because again, even if you have one line of business that's an early mover, you might have another line of business that's like, you know what, I really need to use this service, or fill in the blank, right? It's just going to continue. And then there's a desire that most folks have to hold on to their data because it's core to their business.
mhm,
Like when VMware looked at AI assisted code development, uh, we looked into the public cloud services that were offering it, and we realized that they just weren't for us because our source code is who we are as a company,
mm,
and we're going to hold on to that. We're going to control it. It doesn't get to go to anybody else. So that drove us to our decision to work directly with Hugging Face and working with their Star Coder model, which turned into a safe commercial solution they call SafeCoder that we've jointly developed with them. So I think taking that step back
mhm,
and always thinking about what could change in the future that's going to break what I'm deciding on today, and then thinking through, is there a way that I can preempt that, right, and still give me more flexibility so it's less burdensome going forward. So that's how we've tried to approach innovation, future proofing things. And uh, I think probably what's unique about the AI organization in VMware is we're not just like trying to build the next generation of products and services, but we're also operating the services that allows the company to run. So that's giving us that firsthand experience as well, which is really invaluable.
mhm. So this is a new role for you, the AI Labs, running this
Right.
organization group, massive whatever undertaking. um, what are you excited about with the future in this space?
I think what I'm most excited about is certainly uh, this notion around private AI has really taken a strong foothold. I think it's resonating with a lot of folks, and really we see private AI. It's just an architecture approach to artificial intelligence that really centers the AI services and the way the AI service architecture around both data control and data privacy. So it's about moving the AI model and the AI compute to wherever the data is being generated, which we see as super important. We hear about it a lot with customers. So I think that's one area. The other side that I would mention would be the traction in open source as well as in smaller language models.
Mm,
We're seeing models smaller than 2 billion parameters starting to show their worth and their value. And there's a lot of reasons I think to be excited about this. It's if I can get to a world where there's models that are tuned to particular business processes and specialized, the benefit is first I can retune them far more frequently because the compute resources they need for training or tuning really aren't that much.
Mhm.
For VMware, to give you a specific example, when we had tuned the 15 billion parameter star coder model from Hugging Face, we did it on a couple of GPUs in less than half a day. It's not like hundreds or thousands of GPUs in like 2 months, like you hear
Mhm.
about. So beyond just the iteration I can do with these models, the fact that they're much smaller and they require far less compute resources means that their carbon footprint is also much smaller. So there's a huge sustainability benefit when you think about AI technologies evolving this way as well. So that's probably the most exciting thing I think is really starting to emerge, and it's disruptive. It's open source models are certainly a disruptor in our industry. I think there's a
Mhm.
lot of companies larger than us that are deeply worried about that. But when I wear my customer hat, I think that's exciting, right? That's more choice, that's more innovation velocity, that's further democratization of technology, and those are all good things.
Mhm. Who are some of the people that have had significant impact on your career at VMware?
Wow. Well, completely outside of technology, I'd start with Dr. Martin Luther King.
Mm.
I have a picture of him in my office he's right across from my desk right here. I look out every day and continue to draw inspiration from him. So just Dr. James Deming as well, in terms of thinking about uh, improving processes from Dr. King, really thinking about the power of diversity and diverse perspectives and how that influences innovation. They've had a profound impact on my career, without question. Um, sorry, I'm almost going to get emotional. I'm going to keep it in check though.
You won't be
Yeah,
the first, Chris.
yeah, yeah. And just somebody nobody's ever heard of, Brenda Wright.
Mm.
She was my manager at Commvault, and she affected me because I got to see really firsthand. This was young in my career, almost 25 years ago when I worked for her, how hard she had it because she
Mm.
was a woman in IT in a male dominated field, and she never got the benefit of the doubt. She always had to be work harder than everybody else in the room, and I had a lot of respect for her for that. There was another manager I had at Commvault named Mike Dahlmeyer, and what he did for me was really just incredible. I mean, I think he put my career on a different path because while I was working for him, I had authored a couple of books, and I started to get a larger ego because of that. Like, wow, I'm a published author. I'm so smart. And I was working on something, and I asked him to proofread a chapter, and he did, and he handed it back to me, and he said, "Chris, this is just complete garbage." He goes, "You should be embarrassed." And I'm like, "Mike, what do you mean?" And what he said to me was, he goes, "I wouldn't buy a book for something I can just find on Google." He goes, "What
Mm.
you've done here is just, it's lazy." He goes, "You're better than that. I should be buying a book because it has information in it that I can't find anywhere else." And the lesson that he taught me was that I should never, in anything I do in my career, lower the quality bar. Everything I do should be my best work and something that I'm proud of. I should never take shortcuts. And from that moment, now that's almost 25 years ago, I have never taken a shortcut in anything I've done at work. And it's because of people like Mike. It's people like Brenda that you're not going to read about them necessarily in trade magazines and their impact on people's careers, but they had a huge impact on me.
Mhm.
Certainly the VMware leaders did too. I don't want to discount them. I mean, Pat Gelsinger is just an incredible human being. Um, my first time meeting with him, I didn't realize that Pat was such a big deal when I first met with him when he was at EMC, and he's like, "Well, what else should we start working on?" And I started talking about data security and data confidentiality and the need for virtual TPMs and things that we're still actually
Mhm.
working on today, but Pat had a little notepad about this big, and the kind of things you'd see like a detective have right in an old TV show or something. And he took out the notepad and did a couple notes, and we wound up talking about it again later. But I think there were some people that bet on me and took chances on me, and I've been extremely lucky, I think, in my career to work for people like Pat, to work for icons like Greg Lavender, Ray O'Farrell. I've known Steve Herridge for, I don't know, at least 15 years. And uh, again, I mean, I've been just afforded the opportunity to learn from some of the greats in our industry, and I feel very fortunate to have that.
My last question, which I ask everyone, is what do you think is the lasting impact of VMware's technology?
Wow, yeah, the lasting impact of VMware's technology. I mean, I think in many ways, virtualization and x86 virtualization at its core has changed the world. Without x86 virtualization, we wouldn't have cloud computing as we know it today. VMware's impact on being able to connect users to applications anywhere has really changed the way we've looked at mobile computing. Uh, the let's see, I mean, really breaking, I think, conventional thinking and getting people to think that there's practically anything is possible. vMotion is one of the most profound inventions, I think, in our history. If we look back, taking a workload, right, running on one computer and move it to another one without any type of downtime is just incredible. And that's what I think is exciting about our industry is that while that's being built, there's plenty of people saying that's impossible. It can never happen. And that's what I always tell our inventors is sometimes when somebody's really so negative or visceral in their reaction against what you're doing, in many cases it means that you might be onto something, right? And you should stay the course. But of course, you want to listen to that feedback too, because a lot of times those folks are right. But I think VMware's impact on the industry is that we've really revolutionized the way the world does computing today. We've had a massive impact on reducing the global carbon footprint, which I think is huge. And sometimes, we don't, speak about those things as much as we should. Um, I think in terms of showing how you can operate a successful tech company while also maintaining a strong company culture and work-life balance is something also that VMware is showing. And I hope in the future these are things that people look back and study in terms of what's a blueprint for how to run a large company successfully. Because I think VMware's done a lot of really good things.
Is there anything you'd like to share that we haven't covered?
Wow. Trying to think about it. Yeah, I would just say I think we've already covered it, but just to double click on it, one more time is that uh, the thing that really has impressed me the most with VMware and its corporate culture is integrity. And you can run a company with high integrity and set a bar for high integrity in everything you do, and be successful in doing it. And it's a model that I would love to see other companies in the valley and globally imitate, because I think we're proof that you can do things the right way. You can treat your people well. You can treat your customers fairly, and continue to grow and be successful.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate the time.